This week on Brupeg, I do some industrial housekeeping. Jess is caught sleeping on the job, we film a sexy scene with Stu, and I get straight to the point. We've got these big boxes from Malcolm. They were just some leftover when he cleared out his shed. And our plan is to go through and essentially transfer everything from this workshop into some sort of storage, whether it's those boxes, milk crates down the bottom, and then we need to figure out what we're keeping and what's going in the engine room. We're a Kiwi couple living in Australia who brought a 57-foot steel trawler after she sunk in a flood and was pulled from the sea. We're now bringing her back to life. We're on to the finishing jobs after working on her for the last 6 years to refit and get her ready for launch as soon as possible. Brupeg is rebuilt by us with volunteers funded by Patreons and viewers, and we spend every cent we have to make sure that she's ready. She's fueled by veggie oil, diesel, solar and wind power to do research, projects and expeditions to remote places like Antarctica and the Northwest Passage. She'll be crewed by supporters from around the world. Welcome aboard. We're starting to clear out the workshop, and legend had it, there was floor underneath the rubbish. Turns out it was true. We came up with a smashing idea. Rather than having the clamps on the keel cooling where they were precarious and dangerous, we clamped them to the rudder, and that way Jess can't smash her head on them and like clonk herself out again.
Excellent.
A lot of this is all just random parts from over the years. So that's pantograph hinge, second pantograph hinge. That'll need a build.
That's for the cabin door.
These are door handles for the second pantograph hinge door. These are all laser cut out so that I can make my little D handle locky things. 1,000 grinding wheels. Hand tools.
It's just another way to run. Give me reality, oh sweet reality. I want reality, cool, calm reality.
A lot of work has happened in this room over the last few years, and we're at that moment in time where we have to tidy up.
We have to strip out all of our part storage, which has been here for years.
It's a lot to sort out. Our drawers that we put in here, we've filled them. Got shelves full of stuff. It's the way in. That there is how we go into the downstairs cabins, storage, freezer, that sort of thing. Up there is galley and saloon and wheelhouse, front cabins. So we're on the downstairs below decks region of the boat, and there's a lot to clean up. So this is the look of a man who's not looking forward to this bit.
Looking forward to it and simultaneously not looking forward to it. I'm Schrodinger's anticipatory worker. I like big pipes and I cannot lie. Your other brothers can't deny.
So behind Damien there, you can see in the background, there's the water tank, and behind that is a piece of wood, and behind that piece of wood is a tank, and in that tank you can see over that side, the bolts over there, that little hatch, that tank is full of diesel, pretty much to the top, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's the stuff we recycled, that yep. we got tested and we put through our filter and recycled, so it's okay.
It's our 10 or 15 year old diesel that we filtered to get an A- on the fuel lab report.
And it was high sulphur fuel.
So that was the only reason it didn't get A+, was the fact it was high sulphur, and you're not allowed to sell high sulphur diesel in Australia. So that's how we know the age. It's too
11
old.
or more, isn't it? Yeah. But that was through, it had seawater in it, had a huge amount of bug. It looked like tiramisu when we opened it. It was scary. We've pulled that out, bug killed it, filtered it, sent it to the lab, refiltered it, put it back in. One of the jobs over the next couple of days is to get inside there and have a really good look. We're going to take you in, we're going to show you what we're dealing with, and we're going to talk about options, but we have cleaned out all the tools downstairs under the boat, and one of the things we've got to do is face how we store tools and what comes with us. The workbench, which is going to go in that corner there. There's going to be an air compressor tank on the side.
There'll be the air tank will mount. It's an oval shaped tank, and it'll mount up in here out of the way, and then from about here, sort of about 1.5 meters that way, is a stainless workbench with red drawers sitting where I am.
This is a seated bench, so we'll have a little stool that you sit on, and this is mainly for mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
We're separating the mechanical work from the engineering work because we don't want a whole lot of, cutting dust and stuff like that in here.
You've got the side of the engine here, and then straight down the side here you've got this little channel where stuff accumulates right the way down along the edge of the engine there. And the trouble with that is that if you do any sort of machining or drilling or whatever in this room, that area right there accumulates all of the rubbish, and the boat will rust out from that area. So it's something that we have to be really careful of in this room, is to make sure we don't get any swarf or machining rubbish basically hiding itself under floorboards and things, which can cause problems.
But one of the priorities on Brupeg going forward is to do the projects we want to do and build the stuff we want to try and be innovative and playful with engineering. We need really good engineering spaces and mechanical working spaces on board. So that's why we've separated them. Here it's all about the engine, it's all about maintenance, or the tools will be in here, but there'll be an area on the back deck, and we'll talk about that with you. We're going to have a bench out the back, and we're going to somehow find a way to enclose that, so when we're out at sea, when we're in a port, we can work on the back deck, we can do the work we need to do and keep everything contained. Underneath the bench behind Damien, we need to find a way to collect everything that falls down. I don't want a bolt falling down ending up in the bilge and rusting out, because that's how most of these steel boats rust out. They rust out from the inside with a bolt or a screw or something that's not prepped properly, and the paint's flaked off and it eats out from the inside. So we've got to be really careful. The first job is to figure out what's in here, because every job that got done, the tools, if we were tired or we had to move on to something fast, or there was a volunteer who was skilled in something, we have to leave everything, drop everything and get on with the next thing. So the boat, there are areas in the boat that have lots of things left, so we'll go through and figure out where we're at with that, and I'll show you a really good example over there. Look at that. Everything just gets pulled out of the way for the job that's happening. We were working on the Kubota with Dennis, and that got halted because we needed to carry on with getting the drawers in.
Best of me, and all that I've been getting is second hand.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, fabulous actually. I'm just going to duck down to the pub.
Jesus.
Come home and have a shower after that. Oh
Very
my
good.
God.
And he felt...
I know, it's a nightmare. I think dry sanding was actually better. I'd love to help, but I don't want to get something. Yeah.
Once Stu hosed the black slime off his face, we decided it was time to have a go at some windows. This is the wheelhouse door on Renko. He pulled the door apart and basically cleaned up a bunch of issues. There was some rot that was cut out and fixed and so on. He's epoxied up the door, painted it, and it's time to put new window rubbers back in and get this door back together.
Before you're even in the ball.
Just keep that one in so we don't lose the window.
Oh dear.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, now pop it out this side.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hang on, I think it's because it's on this. Look, we're squashing it.
Uh-oh.
Which didn't quite go to plan.
Oh.
So that one's getting an oversized window in it.
The next day, a very special day. It's launch day for Renko, so I thought the best thing I can do as a helpful neighbour is pop on over nice and early in the morning and wake the crew up so they're ready to go.
off. Fuck off. You know we don't launch till Wednesday.
Confident that Stu is now up and about, it's time to get back into the boat. This is our storage racks in the engine room for now. This is all we've got for now. We're going to be building more. Up here we're going to be storing bigger things, so like welder, plasma cutter, stuff that's a bit bulky. Smaller stuff we can obviously slot into this little space here, and then anything that's going to fall over and be a pain goes in these big aluminium drawers. These are a pair of drawers that we found at the Scrappy for $100. We put some new sliders on them, built a stainless frame, and mounted this in here. So this is going to be our sort of big bulky storage. On the other side of the engine room, where our workshop is, we're going to be having all of our like hand tools and sort of smaller fine storage, that sort of thing. But we're also going to be building in some plastic fish bin storage, like fish bin crates, just because they're so hardy and they're just awesome for storing gear in here. And they're also relatively fireproof in that they'll melt before they'll catch on fire too much. We don't want anything in here that's going to be basically flammable, so we've got timber plywood floorboards. We're going to be ditching those and swapping them out for aluminium. Anything where we can, where we remove a fire risk, we always do in here. Welcome to the Thunderdome. This is half of the junk that came out of our engine room. There's like 6.5 years of ideas and thoughts piled up here. So this has to basically be consolidated down into what's getting binned and what's getting kept, and then we'll clean the engine room out, sort the storage out, do the last of the painting, and then we'll start cleaning this stuff, putting it back in. We're big fans of cleaning, big fans, so we're going to climb inside a really scummy part of the boat now and try and make it tidy. Astute viewers will often tune in to see a rare beauty on the screen, dazzling in her looks. I mean, seriously, look at that engine, it's just gorgeous. Now that we're getting close to launching Brupeg, we're running out of reasons why we can avoid dealing with this tank. This is one of the last major cleanup jobs that we have to do in the fuel system. We have to climb inside this fuel tank and start scrubbing out any little bits of rubbish that are laying on the bottom of the tank, ready to fill with diesel.
Look at this.
Yeah. We need to vacuum it all out.
It's solid underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, they're rough.
Yeah, that'll all come off easy though. So, this is over the back that we have to clean.
Difficult spot. All of that flaky stuff can come off easy. I'm not worried about that. It's still pretty thick, isn't it?
This sort of surface rust and grit is pretty normal in a diesel tank that's been dry for a couple of years. It just falls out of suspension and sits on the ground until you clean it up. In this case, the tank's in good condition, we just have to give it a real good scrub. Yeah.
You can see the thickness of the metal, it's all really good. And over here is the outlet.
So this one here is our fuel outlet, and that one over there is our fuel drain, and that one is to collect the water that sits in the bottom of the tank, and this one here you can sort of see is not all the way down to the bottom, and it's not in the lowest part of the tank either, and that's so that you never drain the bottom 6 inches of your tank off with your fuel filler. You want to take it off with the water trap so that you can always drain the sludge from the bottom of your tank easy.
Water and sludge?
Water and sludge, yeah.
Yeah. This is the rudder post, this is the keel. You see it's nice and thick. So what we've got to do is do a little clean. I'd say probably sweep up the sort of loose stuff.
Yeah.
And water blast.
Yeah, we'll get in here and we'll vacuum it out, and then we'll get in with the short stubby water blaster.
I don't think we need to sandblast in here, I really don't. Even back here, I think it would come off fine, because we're going to have diesel sitting on this all the time, so it's not going to rust.
Yeah.
It just needs to be clean. I don't want any shit going into the motor. I know it'll be caught by the filters, but I just don't want any risk, so.
Yeah.
And you block up the filters, so. I think this won't take us long.
No, this is an easy clean.
Yeah, cool. And that's the last of the tanks. The tank next door here, through here, on the other side of this, is full of diesel right now, so. That's all ready to go. We don't have to work on that tank. So one of the things I find hardest on boats, and small boats particularly, is claustrophobic. I'm not really bad, but I'm enough that I feel uncomfortable when I get tired and grumpy. Luckily that's a human-sized tank. This is job cleaned out, done. So we've got the space to now work clean. Do any little bits of blasting. We want to blast under the motor. It's been sitting there for a little while. So it's a wee bit of surface rust. We'll just clear that out with the blaster. You can see the drawers right through to the other side there diagonally from me in the shelf. So it's a lot of space right now, but it'll fill up. What we're thinking is putting the holding tanks for the toilets, one here and one on the other side. Almost done. For anyone who doesn't know this engine bay very well, this is a holder tank. At the back there is the Kubota generator, which we will or will not keep and rebuild.
We'll possibly upgrade it, because that thing is 20 horsepower maximum, and it's a 16 horsepower continuous engine. And at that sort of horsepower level, we can only get about 12 kilowatts, maybe 10 to 12 kilowatts of electricity out of it as a generator. But it's also really expensive to set that up as a generator. It used to be one, but the alternator died, and we don't have any of the, it's a long story, we don't have any of the electrics to run the alternator.
And there's a bit pricey, parts are a bit pricey on those things.
It's cheaper to buy a new generator, the whole unit, than it is to actually get that thing running up as a generator again.
This is the one that Damien found literally found it was under a flax bush.
Yeah. Someone
had pulled it out of their yacht and obviously just didn't want to take it to recycling and left it there.
As it sits, it's a really good little 3-cylinder diesel engine, great little motor. But we just don't have anything bolted on the back end of the flywheel, so whether it ends up as a hydraulic diesel power pack or if it runs up as a generator, we don't really know yet. One of the things we're thinking of is getting anywhere between a 25 kVA and a 40 kVA generator.
Bruce is
on the hunt.
On the hunt, yes, we get little notices about ones that look good, and because in Australia there's a lot of mines, so there's a lot of generators constantly for sale, really cheap, and low hours, which is what we want. So
the plan is to basically potentially upgrade that to a bigger generator, and then we'll mount a get home safe engine. This is our main shaft, so we've got a gearbox with our main output flange, the propeller shaft flange. This is the prop shaft here, so I think it's a 4-inch or 5-inch, can't remember. What the plan is basically to run a set of gears here with either an electric or a hydraulic motor up here that will we can add the chains whenever needed, so it won't be connected all the time. And then if the gearbox or the main engine ever dies, we can essentially put them in neutral and disconnect them and spin this main propeller shaft using the generator via either a hydraulic or an electric motor, and we'll be able to steam at about 3 knots pretty much indefinitely, because this engine burns 22 litres an hour when we're cruising. This Kubota uses about 1 litre per hour when it's running, and a bigger generator, like say 2 or 3 times the size, might use 2 or 3 litres per hour. So we've still got plenty of runtime, even if we have only have 1 tank. Might be That tank there is 2,000 litres. Even if we only have one 2,000 litre tank, we've still got enough capacity to basically get ourselves limped home to pretty much anywhere we need to be in the world by using our little get home safe arrangement.
This is the filtering system that Jane put in.
This is our hot swapping fuel filter system. So basically what that means is we've got two banks of fuel filters. So bank 1 and then bank 2. Obviously there's a filter that's missing here, but normally there's two identical to the back track. With two filter tracks, we can basically, with our manifold here, we can swap between them. So as we're steaming along, let's say for example this filter bank, we're running off these filters and they block up, we can basically switch them off. Well, actually that's already off, switch them off and then come over to this side and switch the new ones on, and then the fuel will come up the manifold and go through the new fuel filters and then off to the main engine. We can then undo all of the fittings and so on this first bank of filters and clean them out, rebuild them, put new filters in, etc., have them ready to go again. And then if and when this bank blocks up, we can just do exactly the same thing, swap back to the first bank and run. So we don't actually have to turn the engine off. And we'll also have alarms up on the bridge to tell us when the fuel pressure is getting outside of the safe range. So we know when these are blocking up on the bridge. We'll have manual gauges, so there'll be a pressure gauge on this side and a vacuum gauge on this side, but there'll also be digital alarms up top to tell us if that pressure is getting outside of safe range.
For us, this is it's always a walk down memory lane. Dennis and Damien did lots of work on the Kubota. And Trev donated the diesel generator over here. This little one has a backup, and behind you on the motor, we've had so many people work and contribute to that motor. So there's so much more. It's kind of amazing sitting here, because I remember sitting here looking at this and feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work. There's so much to, so many sort of old fittings that needed to come out to make it safe. And there was so much blasting that needed doing. There was a lot of rust and even pitting. We've taken 2 panels out. Well, kind of cut 2 panels out here, cut old fittings out. There was a sonar that was old that needed to come out, and amazing. So behind me is the last frontier of this area, and then what we're going to do is we're going to blast a couple of areas. It'll get a bit sandy and messy, then we're going to clean the whole thing with scrub, so it'll come up white and tidy again, and then things will start going back in. And this is the last push for launch in this room. Dump and run, just so we can get up to our pontoon, which is up the river. And from there we're going to just keep working, and we're going to do trips into the reef. And then once we're finished with that filming and those projects, we're going to head south, hopefully head down to where Stu and Adrian are.
Now that we had our plan of attack, it was time to get in, clean this tank out. Step 1 was basically just get as much of the junk out of the bottom of the tank and into a bucket or a vacuum cleaner. We were using the needle gun as well as the vacuum and a broom and shovel just to get the bulk of it out. You can see here how the needle gun basically just pulverizes it, and it means it's really easy to get it off the steel and into the vacuum cleaner or a bucket. It's essentially just like a layer of grit and dirt and a little bit of surface rust, etc. There's very, very little pitting in the bottom of these tanks, which is also pretty normal inside diesel tanks because diesel is a natural rust preventer. So it's very normal to not paint the inside of diesel tanks on boats and ships. And in this case, these are 45-year-old, and you can kind of see the condition of the steel. Given that these will be diesel tanks for the rest of their life, we're not going to be doing anything internally such as painting, etc. We're just going to be leaving these as cleaned mild steel tanks.
Here we go, give me boys and down high swine.
There we have it, one lovely clean diesel tank. So this is the lowest point of the tank down here. You can sort of see where the pickup on the right hand side here and the water drain on the left hand side. Nice and clean, there's no surface rust or anything that's going to cause issues on there, including an incredibly difficult part to clean over the back here. A lot of people ask us about having a single engine when we go to these remote places, isn't that risky and so on. And one of the main things, commercial boats generally only have single engines, but one of the main things to keep an engine running is clean fuel. So that's why the tanks are so serviceable. You can literally climb in here and give them a scrub. Not many recreational boats have tanks big enough to do that, and therefore the fuel quality is often quite low. Commercial boats are totally different, but this is one of the major ways that we can make sure that motor is maintained within an inch of its life, is get in here and get clean fuel supply. That's how much muck we took out in the end. So it's a 20 litre bucket. You can sort of see it's all basically pulverised surface rust as well as like sort of grit and dirt and sand and rubbish that sort of accumulated in that tank over the years. But she's clean. That amount is about what you'd get in a year's worth of fuel on one of these trawlers per tank.
This is going to be the workbench going in the engine bay. We wanted to roll one to make it a perfect shape, perfect size, but we decided it's too much money. And we had this, and it's nice and sturdy. It just really needs a clean. So all that paint over the years being used as a workbench needed to come off. So I'm using a 60 grit flapper wheel here. It took a lot of work. It was really hard on there. I'm going to go on from there to use a Scotch-Brite disc. I'm going to use medium to start to polish it up, and then I'll use fine. Some of the grooves and some of the marks just won't come out, but we're not worried. It's going to be a workbench. It's going to see a hard life, so it's not going to be perfect. I do go on and do the last sort of polish with an 800 grit sandpaper, and I use WD-40 here in Australia, CRC in New Zealand, just to lubricate as I'm going. I use that on the Scotch-Brite as well as the sandpaper, and it came up a treat.
Last job, climb inside the tank and make it rust proof until we fill this with diesel. I don't know how long it's going to be until we stick diesel in this tank, so I need to protect it from the atmosphere to make sure that whatever's in there is going to stay clean. We're not going to get surface rust, that sort of thing, which it's a bare mild steel tank. That will happen if I don't have something on it. I'm actually going to be painting some pretty heavy axle grease, axle oil onto the surfaces. So just using a roller, basically smearing it on every surface. That'll eventually dissolve into the fuel and it won't be an issue. That'll filter out and it'll just go through the motor without any drama. But it is going to give me some time. Essentially it's going to allow me to leave that tank in a state of stasis once we've sealed this up, and it's going to allow me to, it might give me a year if I really needed to before we filled up this tank with diesel. It's probably not going to be that long until we fill it. This is one of our day tanks, one of 2 day tanks, but in saying all of that, it just gives me options. So that's my plan, to keep this protected until we're ready to start filling. By sheer coincidence, this is the exact sound Stu makes when he's having his morning coffee.
When I sailed down a Parramatta town where the river runs a streak of brown, all the shanty lasses they gathered round, and with a row and a roar we'd make this sound. With an upshade rises, upshade rises from the bed. With an upshade rises, whiskey warned about the head. Took a highborn lady for a whirl across the floor, her hair unfurled. You had caught the wink beneath her curl when we awoke in the kitchen with the servant girl. With an upshade rises from the bed. With an upshade rises, whiskey worn about the head.
And there we have it, one glistening luminescent fuel tank.
And it hasn't had one careful lady owner.
No, it hasn't. It's had half a dozen blokes that
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Sorry.
Can you say it another way so I can put it in? It's a workboat. It's a ex-prawler. Prawler. Hi, Bill. We found it. Thank you. We're about to open it. It was in the corner by the window where we never look, behind this fridge or something. Ooh. What in there? Come on out. Wow.
He makes these. 10mm sockets. The fact that we have 2 of them sitting on the table means that there is an imbalance somewhere else in the world.
Bill's workshop is amazing. Oh my god. Oh my god! Look!
Oh, are you kidding me?
That is incredible.
That's awesome.
Oh, Bill, that's just beautiful. Wow, that's beautiful. Metalworking at its absolute best. You put us to shame, Bill, completely. Imagine being able to make something like that.
I know, it's stunning. It's just stunning. We just noticed how individual each knife is. Like this pattern on each one is really unique and different.
It's beautiful.
They're like one of those things as you look at, the more you look at it, the more detail you see.
I'm going to read it out. G'day, Dame and Jess. I should avoid my tendency to over-explain things. Love what you're doing. Came close to doing something similar when I was younger. We can dribble shit till the cows come home when you get to Taz. Deal. You now have a working galley, and it just so happens that I make knives. Now you also have an official galley knife. I know it's not perfect. Blame bad B.A.D. Beer-aided design. But you two have given a lot, and it's my way of saying thanks. Also included are 3 general purpose knives. I'd very much like Trevor to have one, absolutely. The other 2 you can use yourselves or pass on to future crew that you deem worthy. Cheers, love yous. Bill, thank you so much, Bill. That is amazing.
This is what a happy New Zealand wife looks like when somebody has just supplied her with a stack of knives.
Wow, they're really sharp. Is that amazing? It goes on your belt. Incredible. Thanks, Bill. Oh, they're beautiful. Damien just said,
A woman is not dressed until she has her hip knife on her. And it's so that she can sit in a dusty tavern doing this sort of thing, looking at locals coming in the swing doors. I imagine that's how every tavern is in America, by the way. Eating her apple. Health food conscious tavern goer.
With an upshave rises from the bed. With an upshave rises, whiskey won't about the head. Met a black moss maiden star, got dead and a lonely road she robbed me fair. When she drew her guns, a lovely pair, then laid me down and left me there.